Hello, I'm Paul Gates, and welcome to the Academics. I'm joined today by Dr. Michael Wade of the Appalachian State History Department and Dr. Dave Spiceland of the university's Department of Communication. It's our last episode before the election. We're going to be taking a look at the October surprise, Hillary Clinton's email server being brought up again by the FBI, taxes from Donald Trump, and then what we should be thinking about when we go to the polls and making our predictions on who will ultimately become commander-in-chief, as well as those winning other offices. Gentlemen, the October surprise.
Which one?
Well, okay, that's a good place to start, Dave.
I'm asking which one. Yeah.
Well, there are two. Pick one.
Oh, there's several.
Well, I was thinking, I'm
putting you on the spot.
Right, of more emails from Hillary, and there's more tax revelations about Trump, and what I would say actually is that there is no surprise. In both cases, this is more of the same that we have seen now for maybe since September, when it was maybe a surprise back then.
I would love to be a fly on the wall in the Department of Justice to find out what's going on. I'm hearing these stories that the DOJ is impeding the investigation. I'm hearing stories about FBI agents who are very upset with Comey. The story I heard was that he would go down the hall and say hi to people, and a lot of agents wouldn't even respond to him because they were pretty ticked about what he did back in July. But who knows what's going on there? It's a puzzlement.
Yeah, I mean, this is a reversal on his part, and now there are probably other agents who are equally as upset as they were when this first broke.
Well, and apparently it's Anthony Weiner's whatever that has sort of started. It's not funny. I mean, we're laughing, but it's tragic.
I'm laughing at whatever.
Yeah, that's true. But apparently that opened up another can of worms. Apparently the FBI is looking not just at the email server thing, which is very difficult for people to understand, but there's also the Clinton Foundation. Is that being investigated? But then I saw something online, and of course if it's online it's got to be true, that the DOJ had halted that, so who knows?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Mike, what's your take here?
That none of these are issues central to what ought to be the focus of this election.
Well, before we leave
well, I'm not ready to
these
leave
things.
it.
Oh, okay. But part of this question is what effect is any of this going to have? And I would just throw out that there have been 30 million early ballots already cast, so there are fewer people to influence. And so I guess we could go back to, are they going to be influenced by some of this stuff?
Well, I think there's no telling before the fact. The pollsters and maybe the political scientists will tell us when it's all over here. I do think that Comey's tenure as FBI director is all over. And that we all ought to be very concerned about the National Police Agency intruding itself into this election with innuendo about what might or might not be in a different computer. Calls to mind the FBI spying on Reverend King, the COINTEL program against the Black Panthers, and Americans should also be wary of the role of Putin's Russia in this campaign. Newsweek magazine just published a story this morning on Europe's reservations about Russia's rather obvious preference for Trump. Meanwhile, the key issues that go to the country's future are ignored as the latest news bite comes out.
Well, it says something too about her ability to lead, her ability to understand some of these complex issues, and what kind of a person is Hillary Clinton? As far as any Russian involvement, that's not been proven. Apparently the Trump campaign has not worked with the Russians, with Putin, in terms of some of this supposed behind the scene kind of thing that Hillary is trying to get something to stick. And I mean, everybody is just not acting terribly presidential at this point.
Well, it's not only is Hillary
Her judgment.
controlling anything to do with the Russians, but whoever is in control, the fact remains that the Russians are trying to insert themselves to some degree in the election. And there is, I mean, no matter who's behind it, even if it's just Putin, that is a threat to democracy.
Seems clear from this Newsweek article that the Europeans think that it's an issue, and they're concerned about their own future, and are saying that they in effect have been forced to investigate Trump's European background out of their looking after their own interests.
Well, sure, it's their backyard.
Yeah. But once again, where are the real issues, which I think is what the second part of this.
Right. That was going to be our second look at where the candidates, not just the presidential candidates, but the gubernatorial and the Senate candidates in North Carolina, where do they stand on the real issues? We'll start with the president, or what the presidential election issues should be?
Well, environmental challenges. Neither is really focused on them as neither candidate, major candidates, as really as focused on them as they should be. But Clinton, at least, is aware of the problem and has given some lip service to it. Trump says climate change is a hoax. So by extension, the other environmental challenges associated with it must be too. On foreign policy, Clinton's probably more likely to deal with the Russians in a firm and measured fashion than is Donald Trump, who is as woefully ignorant of global political realities as he is of climate change. Tax program, you take Clinton's, I guess for what she said. I haven't seen the commentary on it. Trump's tax programs have been roundly criticized by economists who simply say that the numbers don't add up. It will blow up the deficit even more. But those things aren't really, they haven't been the feature of any of the three debates and almost none of the TV ads.
Why is that? That's a good thing to bring up. Is it because they're too busy bashing each other? They don't want to talk about issues?
Debates are all about sound bites. I mean, when you think about 1960, 64, there were no debates. 68, there was no debate. 72, then into 76. Then we found out that Poland had been liberated from the Soviet bloc, according to Ford, and I still don't know what he was thinking. And that was the soundbite. That's the impression that we got. In 1980, we got the "There you go again" from Reagan. And then 84, he tried to duplicate it with not as much effectiveness. So it's all about sound bites. Is it about policy? Is it about, and we mentioned this last time, but in 1960, in terms of the Kennedy versus Nixon debates, Kennedy looked tanned, he looked fit. He had Addison's disease. If he had lived 10 more years, he probably would have been dead. But he looked good. Although some have said that some research showed that those who listen on radio thought that Nixon won on the basis of arguments.
Yeah, well then the other part of that is Nixon supposedly had 5 o'clock shadow, and that didn't look good
No
on
makeup.
television, and no makeup, because there wasn't time, and he was a little perspiring too. Was that part of it?
Yeah. And he bumped his knee before he went into the WBBM studio in Chicago, and there really were several debates, as I recall, but we only know about that very first debate.
So we shouldn't expect anything out of debates. Is that what history is showing us? That they're all about sound bites. They're all about appearances. They're all about being on
versus
TV.
substance.
We should demand that they be substantive and that or be canceled. They're a waste of time as it currently stands. nothing in any of those three debates that was worth the time and the money that must have been spent.
Agreed, Dave?
Oh, I think that they serve some function. Is it a major policy kind of thing? Probably not, but I still like to see them. I like to see how they would interact with each other. And they didn't interact very well in this particular cycle. They don't like each other.
Well, no, that's been clear right along, not
Yeah.
just in the debates, but in the appearance with the Catholic Charities in New York. I mean, that was pretty personal.
But there you are. These are, our political campaigns should be about reality, just for the health of the republic, if nothing else. But what we get instead are pseudo events. A debate is not real. It's a staged event. So was the Catholic Charities appearance. We, as Dave said, and I do it too, we take occasional delight in being entertained by these things, but we're not really informed.
And television is all about entertainment, reality television. That's the kind of thing that we're being fed, and we like drama.
Yeah. More on real issues, though. What can we say about what should be being addressed? Mike's opened that up, Dave.
I think that if you look at what is the role of the president, and by the way, all of these things that the president says we're going to do, it depends on Congress. One of the things that we have not thought much about is what will happen. Will the Senate flip Democratic? What about House apparently is going to stay Republican. To what extent? Who knows? But he's a commander-in-chief, he or she. That's their job, is to keep us safe. And, Ronald Reagan apparently in 1980 scared, as my late grandfather would say, scared the whack, I think that's okay to say, but scared the whack out of the Iranians to where they set them free once that Reagan was inaugurated. Whether he was as much of a happy warrior, quoting Hubert Humphrey, who knows. The second thing I'd like to see, and this is not in any particular order, is a tax policy that is fair, something that, as far as the fair tax, the so-called fair tax, and the value-added tax like the Europeans have, I don't know if that'll ever take over. But it'd be nice if they followed through with their promises. When I heard President Obama say, if you make less than $250,000, your taxes will not go up, and mine did, and I don't make more than $250,000. That was a lie. It wasn't true. It'd be nice if whoever they are, whether they're Republican or Democrat, if they would tell us they would tell us the truth about what they intend. But again, it depends on Congress. Congress can sit on their hands and say, no, we're not going to do X, Y, and Z.
It's a continuing mystery to me why a presidential candidate, regardless of party, would campaign for the White House and never go near, rhetorically or otherwise, the state of Congress and ask the American people, if you're going to vote for me, why don't you at the same time vote for a Congress that will help us to enact our vision of what the American future should be. It was Obama campaigning for re-election in 2012. How in the world do you miss that opportunity after you faced that Congress for 4 years? Hillary Clinton wants to get the job done, work both sides of the aisle. It's a heck of a lot easier to work both sides of the aisle if the voters have elected some more reasonable people. So I couldn't agree more. We're at a turning point in our history in this election. We have in this country been sitting on our keisters for the last 4 decades, sort of sleepwalking through history, squandering opportunities to address the life or death environmental problems that threaten the future of our children and grandchildren. And here we are, and the scientific community is saying, time's run out. Time's run out. What we can do now is maybe mitigate the effects of climate change. We can't stop it, but we're even running out of the time to try to address it and ameliorate it a little bit.
Well, isn't this usually, are you,
Just kicking the can down the road.
is what we
Yeah.
do with most everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
But, you know, we figuratively speaking, we're at the last exit on that great industrial expressway, the one before the darkness that's going to result from runaway climate change.
Well, I'm not as pessimistic as that. But I hear Hillary, I mean, her theme is stronger together, and she says that half of Trump supporters are a basket of deplorables. Is that a way to bring us together? If she's elected, how does she deal with those deplorable people that she talked about?
But you see, the problem with that is what you've done is you've gone right back to personnel.
Well, that's what she did.
But what we need is policy. And I think you know, that's the thing. As far as the darkness, pessimist, yes. Based on about 4 decades of reading scientists and other people on this problem. This is not coming from me. You know, this is a collective voice that's out there for anybody who cares to investigate it.
you know, back to we talked about voting for someone else who will actually act in Congress. You know, the perennial problem of, you know, the House of Representatives particularly, you know, they're all bums, except for my representative.
Yeah.
And, of course, you know, your representative is the only one you get to vote for. So there's no change, or little. Any chance of overcoming that?
Well, how do you-
on the way to policy?
How do you feel about your representative?
Well, not everybody. Not everybody likes their representative. But enough people do that change happens rarely, comparatively.
Well, there are some people, I mean, if you take a libertarian approach, their position would be vote for me and I will do very little of anything, because a libertarian approach would be less taxes, less government, particularly at the federal level. And Republicans and libertarians are not the same thing. They're different. They share some things. They could be, you know, cousins in some ways. And the Democrat Party used to be, to some extent, particularly back in 1960, that way. But things change, you know.
At this point, doing very little of anything is a surefire recipe for disaster.
Okay. I think we ought to go on to our predictions in our last 5 minutes. We'll take them in any order you would like. In either one of you
And
start.
keeping in mind, we are recording this, we're not taping this, but we're recording this on November 4th, so there's a lot that's still happening. You know, this whole business about early voting really confounds things, because it used to be that you could absentee vote, you could vote beforehand, if you were going to be sick or out of town or whatever, and there was a small number that would do that. And then you had election day, you had exit polling and exit polling data. They're doing exit polling, but it's on the people who are doing early voting, and that appears to be somewhat interesting. So you want me to go ahead and...
Well, let me throw in too, as long as you brought that up that way, Dave, that the student newspaper, the Appalachian, has done a comprehensive and very professional job on the election that just came out on Thursday, yesterday, and will be worth looking at from now until the election and thereafter. But they've done a nice job and so congratulations to our student paper. Okay, predictions.
The Cubs in 7.
Very good. Well done.
Seriously, given the current state of the American election, it would be easier to predict the losers, which in this case is likely to be the electorate. I don't want to predict the winners because I would really only be expressing hopes. But this election, the American electorate can be the winners if they come out of this determined never to have another election like this in the country's history. What a sad commentary on the state of the American Republic and the two-party system and the voters. Saddest of all is that this country faces a historic election. More than 2 Americans in 5 regard a man who is a racist, misogynist, and an ignoramus as a credible and even serious candidate.
Are we talking about Trump?
We are.
Okay.
There's no greater comment on the intellectual bankruptcy of modern republicanism, and for that matter, public education, than this. And the Democrats are slightly better, but only by comparison with the Republicans. So what's left? Goofy Gary Johnson and a New England town politician running on the Green Party. And write-ins, of course. Wow.
Dave, quickly,
Wow, how much time do I have?
2 minutes. Sorry, we have 2 minutes.
Howard
You
K.
have 1.
The late Howard K. Smith, who I had a great deal of respect for, one of Merle's boys, apparently was always talking about the parliamentary system. And I don't know if I would want a parliamentary system, but I would like a shorter election period, maybe 2 months. I would like to see the money go out of the system. To some extent, you're still going to need money to fund a campaign. Now, my prediction, I think, is going to be close. And that's about the best I could do at this point with what I've got. There's a very interesting Los Angeles online poll, a tracking poll, that every day they're showing the numbers, they break it down. So if you're interested, any of you out there, that's a nice way to look to see what's going on. If it was a horse race, do I have to say somebody, or
No, don't have to.
do I?
If you think it's that close.
I think it's very close.
Okay.
But again, keep in mind, and we all know this, we don't vote on a nationwide basis. We do it on a state by state, and apparently both candidates are going out there. North Carolina is up for play, and a few other states that were going Democrat appear to be going Republican, apparently because of the Friday call the surprise or whatever. So it's going to be very close.
Well, maybe this is something we can explore the next time, post-election, that have we learned any lessons? Is there any hope for whatever happens this time around will make us or encourage us to do better, do differently in 2020? Possibility?
I'm not running for office, so don't
Okay, well.
don't shoot me. I'm just the piano player like Elton John said.
All right. Well, we maybe can explore that post-election. That's our program for today. For the panel, I'm Paul Gates. We hope you'll join us next time on The Academics. And remember to exercise your right to vote in this election.